Thank you. Hi. I'm over the moon. It's my first time. I have a question about signs. I had an experience, and it occurred more than once, and I have absolutely no idea why it happened and why I would manifest such a thing. I live out in the country, and I was walking down my lane back to my house at night, 9:30, it was dark, and I was by myself on acres and acres of land where there was no one near me, no neighbors or anything. All of a sudden, and I was in a peaceful, I like to look at the stars and then do the gratitude thing. All of a sudden, out of the sky came a light, and it came down over me, and it was a gigantic circle around me. And I didn't know what to think, so I started turning around and looking all over, and it was like a cone that came down on me, and it lasted probably 5 or 6 seconds, and then it retreated. And I didn't feel fearful. I didn't feel like the word alien never entered my mind. I wasn't being, zoomed up anywhere. So anyone I ask about it, my family, they all just kind of looked at me out of the corner of their eye. About 3 weeks later, I was in the barn with my horses, and I like to hang out about 8:30 at night and just, schmooze with them. And all of a sudden, my gelding and I both saw something, and we walked to the doorway, a wide open doorway, and there was that light again. And it came down, and it was going through the trees, and like it was searching, and his ears were forward because he saw it. And I thought, well, I finally have a witness, only he can't tell anyone. And I had the same feeling, good feelings again, but I have why would I manifest this? What?
The most significant thing that we want to say about this is that, isn't it interesting how odd interacting with non-physical seems to you humans?
Definitely.
Isn't it odd how when you translate vibration into something visual, that you think it's something. Now, you used a really good word. You used the word, I saw a sign. So what is it a sign of? It's a sign of a number of things. It's a sign of the existence and presence of non-physical energy who is aware of you, who wants your attention, who knows that there was a great probability of getting your attention, who got your attention. And that's what the sign is. It's a sign of your ability to interact with non-physical in a way that you know. You see, you do it all the time. But mostly when you do it, you take it for granted, and so you don't acknowledge it as the important thing that it really is. That's what happens with most people. There's interaction all the time that is happening, but you have ways of explaining it away. It isn't until something happens that you can't explain away. Esther has a house in Utah, and it's a beautiful house with lots of unique, really extraordinary carving on the walls and ceilings. And some years ago, about 2 years ago, she was sitting in the living room with a friend, and they were schmoozing like you do with your horses, just talking, enjoying the moment. And a feeling of such utter satisfaction and pleasure came over them that they just didn't want to leave. And Esther said, I would like to just sit here forever. So they sat there, and Esther found herself taking it all in, looking at the tall ceilings and the beautiful carvings, and she had always appreciated it, but never like that. And went on for over 2 hours, and finally they got hungry, and so they were driving down the driveway, and there were people at the neighbor's house, unusual. Sister stopped in the driveway and walked over to the fence and said, hey. And one of the young people came over and said, Grandpa died. And then Esther knew, because this man who was the neighbor was the man who had carved all of that. And so then his son came to the fence, and Esther said, I am so sorry that I never got together with your dad. I kept wanting him to come, but he had been ill, and so it was not practical. And his son said that house was his greatest pride and joy. And Esther said, I know. He's over there with us, just looking around and feeling the exceptional beauty of it. So a sign, not as weird, not as mystical. It was certainly something Esther felt, and because she knows what it feels like to engage with non-physical, she didn't miss it. She didn't think it was a coincidence. She knew for sure he was floating around in that house enjoying. And then Esther said to this adult son, I hope. And he's standing there looking at her like, what's wrong with you? That your dad will haunt my house. So now, the man who had commissioned that house originally, many, many years ago, died about 3 weeks ago. And Esther thought, I wish I were out there so that we could tour the house together. And then the next day she got a call from the housekeeper who was there, or a text, and the text said, when I walked into the house I could feel something different, can't quite put my finger on what it was. I went up to the 3rd level and I was doing some vacuuming and I heard a crash downstairs. So I went downstairs and looked around, and I thought maybe the gardener was in the house, and he was not. And then I found a broken glass on the counter, and Esther knew. But just to be sure, she checked the camera, and there was no sign of a cat running through or a bat flying through or a burglar flying through. Just a glass shaking loose and dropping. On the day that someone was there to hear it, just saying hello to Esther. So sometimes when it happens like that, you can call it coincidence. Oh, it's just enough movement in the house that finally that glass shook loose. Really? Really? In such perfect timing, when someone was there to acknowledge it and to text Esther so that she could get in on the fun of it, you see? And so your ability to translate it is something that we want you to take note of. That's all. Your inner being wants you to take note that you have the ability not to just translate as Esther does auditorially, but visually as well. There is no curtain between the physical and the non-physical. We are all in this together. Your ability to translate the subtle vibration of non-physical is not something that everybody can do. Just those with special gifts and horses.
His ears were up. Yeah. I told a friend about it, and his only remark was, he looked at me and said, were you drinking? And I said, no. So
see how that is? This is the conversation that we began with today. Humans are accustomed to observing manifestations, and by those manifestations we mean the things that you can translate through your seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And what you see with your eyes is a vibrational interpretation, but it's something that is so common that you all accept it. No one says, did you see the rainbow? Because everybody in town saw it if they just looked up, even though it is a unique experience with moisture in the atmosphere and a specific moment in time when the sun is shining in the right direction. But you don't act amazed when you see things that almost all eyes can translate into something that is tangible, so to speak. But when your eyes are able to translate because of the refining of your own vibration, things that most eyes can't translate because of the not refining of vibration, then they want to make you drunk.
true.
And so when someone says, were you drunk? No, just evolved.
Good answer. I like that.
Enough?
Yes. Thank you.